Tim Petrowich for Dateline Marion, our guest as usual, Marion head football coach Kerry Martin. And last Friday night, probably a game that was maybe a little more exciting than you wanted it to. 41-40 win over Cahokia. The Wildcats scored with about 42 seconds left in the game. Coach, talk about being able to rally from down 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter.
Well, I'm real proud of the effort by the kids. You know, a game couldn't start worse than this ball game started. You know, we fumbled the opening kickoff, and they pick it up and score, and we get off to a very rough start, and you know, we just didn't play, you know, out of the gate like we wanted to, and our kids just hung in there. I mean, I didn't see any panic on the sidelines. We just kept plugging away and kept staying close and tied up at one time and lost the lead again. But, you know, big plays hurt us. And, of course, you and I talked about the big play potential of Cahokia. And you think back to the kickoff return, the pick six, the fumble recovery for a touchdown. They manufactured a lot of points off of big plays, and that's what they do. And they're talented guys, and they can make things happen on a single play. So I'm proud of the kids. They hung in there. They kept fighting, and you know, never gave up, because a lot of times when that momentum changes, your team can get down and have trouble getting back into the ball game. But our kids fought back.
And, you know, to quote a famous former NFL football coach, Cahokia is exactly who you think they are. And so, you know, the fumble recovery was a short one. It was only 14 yards,
right.
But 98-yard kick return, an 88-yard interception return. They had a run from scrimmage of nearly 80 yards,
right.
Another one of 57 yards. So, you know, 5 of their 6 touchdowns were either on special teams or defense or big plays.
Right. Oh, that's what they do, you know, and I think it's as I said, one of those things that, and big plays create momentum. And so every time they had a big play, the momentum would shift to their sideline, which makes it, I think, increasingly hard to get your team back focused again and you know, keep plugging away. And our kids handled that pretty well, you know. And that's good, because we're going to have a lot of close games along the way. We're that kind of football team. We're going to have battles against everybody we got left on our schedule, and I think it's important that we learn how to handle being down, learn how to handle, like we did against Harrisburg, being up, and handling all those situations. There's a saying by Nick Saban that says, your kids got to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And when he first said that, I thought, let me think about that a moment. But he's right. Football is a constant change from comfortable situation to uncomfortable, and you've got to learn how to handle and not panic at the uncomfortable moments in football. And I think we showed at least some growth and some maturity last week.
You had a big play of your own in a different form, a 4th and 1, a 4th and less than a 1 for Cahokia, with just a couple of minutes left in the game, and your defense made a huge stop. And it was at the line, and we've talked a lot about your defensive backs and linebackers making tackles, but Eli Barber and Damian Buchanan in on that play made a big stop on their running back, who had 218 yards in the game, but he couldn't get that one they needed. Yeah,
that was big. You know, we had to get the ball back to have a chance to tie the game, and just a huge play by our defense. And they've been pretty opportunistic over the years, and made big plays when they counted, and in those goal line or short yardage situations. So that was as big a play as there was in the ball game, because without that, we don't have a chance to get the ball back. But it's a big play for us.
And then you expressed some concern and showed it with the offensive possession on that last possession. You didn't want to score too soon. So when you got down in the red zone, you kept the ball on the ground and did some things that ate up a little bit of clock and wound up scoring with 40 seconds left.
And it's interesting, it was still almost too much time left on the clock, because the way they can move the football and scramble and make plays, and that open space, that 2-minute drill type offense where they could be doubly dangerous. So it was important, I think, that we use up as much time as we could, but still get the score. And I probably became more concerned as our last drive went on, that we've got to make sure we don't try to worry about the clock and forget to get the ball in the end zone, because we had limited timeouts by the time we got inside the red zone, and we had to be careful there. We didn't, you know, try to think clock more than scoring.
The side note on this game was that it was the Pink Out and the Claws for the Cause, the fundraiser, and we talked about how successful it's been in previous years. But this year you topped $20,000 in a single event, and that's huge.
Yeah, we were able to really help out 4 individuals that I know their families can use the money and are fighting a fight far bigger than a football type battle. But yeah, it was great to be able to play in a game like that, coach in a game like that, win a game like that, and be able in the end to say, well, win or lose, we were able to do something positive and offer some financial assistance to some people fighting a real fight.
You turn your attention now towards Mount Vernon. This is a Mount Vernon team that's maybe a little strange when you look at the results of their games. You know, they lost their season opener to Taylorville, was probably a surprise. They come into the game 1-3, and they've had some tough games. A tough game against Triad a couple of weeks ago. Last week they nearly knocked off Althoff, lost 28-26. So even though they're 1-3, they're very capable of possibly being 4-0 at this point.
Yeah, I like them. When I watch them on film, I like Coach Shaner's team. I think they've got some really good players on defense. They got a couple of defensive linemen that I think are outstanding football players. He's got some good linebackers. He's got some secondary guys that are making plays and picking some balls off. And offensively, he has a great scheme of jet motion, that traps off of it and counters. So I like his football team. I think they're much better than the 1-3 record that they've got. I'm sure there's a lot of ball games left. They plan on winning, and they're capable of winning. We're just sitting here a game ahead at 2-2, and so I think they're very dangerous. I think they're an outstanding team, and I think they're going to give us all we want.
And they've got some experienced players coming back to lead that offense, especially Reeves at quarterback and Miller Gray, the very talented running back who can play. Not only he runs a lot of those sweeps, but he can go out and catch the ball too and do some things.
Yeah, like I said, I think they've got a lot of weapons. I think they've got guys with playoff experience from last year's team, and we had a whale of a game with them last year, and so I anticipate a great football game. I think this will be, as I said earlier, a lot of close games left in the conference to play, and I think the next few ball games are no different. I think this Mount Vernon team is going to be a real handle for us. So we'll have to play really well again and get some breaks and make some plays and do the things that we did Friday to be a successful team, and also improve on some things that we think we're still not doing. So got a lot of work to do.
Your team defensively has been fairly consistent throughout the season. Even last week, the 40 points you gave up, 2 on special teams and 1 by the defense.
Right.
So the offense only gave up 3 touchdowns to Cahokia. The offense, though, has really started to come around, and you've started to move the ball and put points on the board, more than 40 points in the last 2 games.
Yeah, that's good to see. I think it's just, we talked earlier in the year when we were failing to score a lot of points, we lacked consistency, and I think we're more consistent now. We're making some plays which we were struggling with earlier. We're making some catches, we're making some runs, throwing some blocks, catching the ball down the field for some big plays, and hopefully we can continue doing that against some very good defensive teams coming up. But I think the defense, you're right, is better than what the scores show, and I think offensively we've got to continue to improve. I see moments of really solid football from our offensive side of the ball, and then I see some moments where we've still got a ways to go. And I don't notice that until I watch the film, and the film really gives you the truth, whether you want to see it or hear it or not, and you see it on the film that we still have a ways to go, but we are getting better.
Now, Seth Bayer's been pressed into a little more action at the receiver with the injury to Brandon Osborne. I don't know how Brandon is. I know he dinged up his shoulder a couple weeks ago. But Seth has really stepped up and made some nice plays on the offense.
Yes, I'll pay tribute to him. Seth, junior wide receiver, junior slot receiver, and he had the fumble at the start of the game the other night, and I told him during film session, there's a lot of players that would never bounce back from that first play of the game, and he came right back in the next series and made some plays, and made plays throughout the game for us, and I thought that was a real tribute to who he is, the mental toughness it takes to make a mistake and to be able to shake that off, learn from it, have a short memory, but move on and stay focused on the rest of the ball game. And we don't win that game without him. And he handled that very, very well in a very mature way. And I was proud of him because those mistakes are going to happen, but sometimes it's not what happens, it's how you respond to them. I thought Seth responded really well and had a nice ball game for us.
I noticed this and mentioned it after the game Friday night, and it's something you talked about a little bit. The new wrinkle in the change of pace offense with the 9 linemen and 2 backs, and when you have 645 pounds, I think, combined weight in your fullback spot with Damian Buchanan and Eli Barber. I might be able to run behind a line like that.
Yeah, you know, it's limited in what it can do, and I don't want people to think it's a novelty. We really think it has a role somewhere in the game at some time, maybe for a short yardage play or whatever. It's not a do-all offense. It has limitations, but it's nice to have that option. I think that the other reason we do it is to get more kids involved. You know, we want as many kids involved in the game plan as possible. When you look at defense, offense, and special teams, we're trying to get kids on the field. You realize that there are some sophomore linemen that got on the field in that key moment we brought in the big offensive set, that these young linemen got a chance to play in a big ball game, you know, toe-to-toe with a great football team. And now they've got that experience that they can carry over to the next week or the next game or 2 weeks from now, that will carry over when they're juniors and seniors. And I think I've learned never to underestimate the power of just a few snaps at your sophomore year in key situations, not in just mop-up duty, but I'm saying when the game is on the line, it makes a big difference in getting kids out, to stay out, and to continue being a part of what you're doing. And I tell you what, at practice, it makes a difference when they know they've got a chance to be on that field when the game counts.
Well, and they were instrumental in the couple of scoring plays in the fourth quarter, but there were a couple other plays back on the field, short yardage situations, right, where they made some big plays too.
Yeah, I agree, and I think they're contributing. So when those kids go to that sideline, they're now engaged in what's going on because they're a name away from being right back on the field and call out that formation. So we're getting more kids engaged in the game plan, and I think that's beneficial to everybody. I mean, I think that, you know, from the parents to the sideline guys to the kids at practice, they know that coach is trying to find a way to get us on the field. And so our scout team kids are performing, I think, a little higher level, hopefully because they want to catch someone's eye. And when we've got 2 or 3 kids this week, we're going to look at moving to different spots to try to get them on the field.
Something I noticed when I started looking over the roster and people who are playing significant roles, there's a lot of juniors and sophomores in this group that are playing a lot of time. So you play that into this early start and the things that are going on. They're just now becoming mature as football players in the middle of the season.
We felt like in the off season, I know a lot of coaches, they know this already, and it's not a big secret, but when we looked at some of the best teams we have ever had, we noticed that a lot of those teams had kids that played significant roles as sophomores, and by the time they were seniors, they were a different player. We have some players that don't contribute to their senior year, and that's been very successful for us. We've had some late bloomers, I'll call them, that didn't have a great role until their senior year. But we're trying to find ways to get some kids on the field at a younger age to get that experience, and I think to speed up the growth process as a player. Maybe as dangling the carrot out there in the off season that, hey, you've been on the field, you've played in some big ball games. And you're right, when you look at that roster and who's playing and who's contributing, you're seeing a Hunter Milligan, you're seeing a Josh Williams, you're seeing a Josh Messamore, you're seeing Xavier Camrick, you're seeing some guys that are just sophomores who've got a long, hopefully, football career ahead of them that are contributing to what we're doing.
Friday night is your next to last home game of the season. The Mount Vernon Rams are here, and I know we talk a lot about, you know, you prepare for the other team, but you work to make yourself better. So what do the Wildcats have to do Friday night to be successful?
Well, first of all, we got to continue to get better, you know, because as the season progresses, some teams are going to get better, some teams are going to get worse, depending on their situation, their record, and their health level, and how many injuries they've sustained. But the problem for most people is that what you don't want to do is you don't want to start the season at a certain level and get satisfied. We told the kids, you know, don't get satisfied because you won the Cahokia game, because a team like Mount Vernon, a team like Althoff, a team like Centralia, a lot of those teams are going to get better as the season goes on. They're going to move their players around like chess pieces. They're going to find the right mix and match of this. And so if we don't continue to get better, some teams may surpass us or improve more than us. So for me, it's more consistent. It's continuing to work hard in practice and become a better practice team. And again, refine those pass routes, work that pass pro, become a better tackling team, hawk the ball a little bit more, get to that football a little more and make plays on it. I mean, there's just things we've got to get better at. We're on our way, I think, Tim, but we're not there where we want to be, and just constant improvements what we're looking for in practice.
Wildcats take on the Mount Vernon Rams. Kickoff 7 o'clock on Friday night, Coach. We'll see you there.
Sounds great.
For Kerry Martin, head coach of the Marion Wildcats, I'm Tim Petrowich for Dateline Marion.